Success isn't always about the money. Success for me this year stand for managing the business, but also being present with the kids. You might have set the goals and maybe the financial goals haven't come to fruition yet, but don't sit in that moment and sort of look at the bigger picture of what other successes you've had in life, and that is a bigger picture.
Hello and welcome to the Mum Means Business podcast, where we shine a light on inspiring women who have one thing in common. When they're not managing tantrums, homework, PE kits and play dates, they are busting their gut to create something from nothing, to turn their passion into a thriving business and build a better life for themselves and their families. We dig into what motivates devoted mothers to pursue entrepreneurship and how they integrate their work and family life. I'm Victoria, your host, and if you're an ambitious mum in need of some solidarity whilst navigating the messy middle of making your big dream a reality, then stick around. This is for you. My guest today is passionate about helping small businesses grow, not with a one-size-fits-all solution, but with tailored strategies that actually work. Back in 2019, with a preschooler and 6-month-old twins at home and 2 decades of marketing experience under her belt, she decided to take the leap and launch her own agency. And yes, just in time for the global pandemic. Fast forward 6 years and Caroline Cox runs a thriving digital marketing agency in Mansfield, Nottinghamshire, that combines the high-level expertise of a big firm with the personal touch of a boutique service. Now a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, Caroline believes great marketing is all about building genuine relationships. She creates bespoke toolkits designed for long-term success, helping business owners step away from the day-to-day overwhelm and get back to doing what they do best, running their business. Caroline, I can't wait to hear your story. Welcome to the Mum Means Business podcast.
Thank you. That was a really lovely intro. It made me a bit emotional. Thank you. I think it's brilliant what you're doing with this, the purpose of it. So I'm really delighted to be part of it.
And I'm really excited to interview you because when I realised that you started your business with baby twins and a little one at home, I was flabbergasted because I had 2 under 2, but that is not the same as twins. And so I want to understand what made you do it.
Well, at the time of doing it and when I launched it, I was just totally in the zone of it was meant to be, this is what I'm doing. All of a sudden I had a higher purpose, which was those 3 babies. And I just did it. But when I launched it, the amount of people that said, oh, you're brave. Oh, you're brave. That was almost felt like the only response, and I wanted something different. And now I look back and I say, oh, I was brave. I don't think I can how brave. But yeah, I had Joseph, and I was in a full-time job, and he was in nursery. And I remember getting the invoice one December, and the invoice was for the full childcare that we'd pay for. And it was a whopping bill. And I'd had loads of time off work because he'd caught a hand, foot and mouth. Not the nursery's fault, but they'd catch it from each other.
Of
and
course,
I was like, right, okay, so I've been paid my salary. Yeah, I paid it out to the nursery and I've had to be at home. The twins weren't expected, obviously that was a shock. Joseph was only like 16 months old when we found out. So the pickle was having 3 babies in nursery. The bill was going to be horrendous. And then I thought, I can't be in my job and fulfill it if then they catch a cold, etc., and they can't be in the nursery. I thought, this is not gonna work. So I thought, well, how am I going to do it? How am I going to earn a salary that I'm used to being in, but still be with my babies and keep that flexibility but consistency? Not that there's anything wrong with it, but I didn't want to be dropping them off for their breakfast and picking them up, just before 6 o'clock and just literally putting them to bed, because I'd experienced that with my firstborn. So the agency concept was an idea that I had in my mind for about 10 years, because I worked for a corporate company, but they got took over. So I actually got made redundant. There was no worse feeling in the world. And at that point, I thought, right, can I set up? And I didn't. And I wish that I did do it. I just went for the easy option. And when there was a bigger corporate company that took me on, so it was a bit of an ego boost. It was like, right, well, I don't need them. This is who I've got now. So I wish I did it then. So the idea was planted in my head. And then when we found ourselves in this situation, it was, right, okay, well, if I set up a company, I can earn X amount more than what I would in salaried, and I've got that flexibility. So it seemed at the time a no-brainer to do it. But then, yeah, looking back in hindsight, when I look back on myself, I'm like, oh, wow. But I'm glad I did it when they were babies, because you actually do have more time when they're babies, because I was the master at naps. They used to, you just have to, when you've got three, you have to master the naps. They'd go down for a solid 2 hours in the middle of the afternoon, and then they're definitely in bed for 7 o'clock. You know, you're in that routine. Whereas now, sometimes, you know, I'm done before, like my eldest is done. Are you still sort of like, you get a bit more space. At the time, I just didn't overthink it. And I think that's the key. I didn't overthink it, and I didn't have anything to lose, really, because I dropped down to maternity leave pay. I'm always a person that leaves doors open. So it was, well, now or never, give it a go. And yeah, luckily, I've never looked back.
I think this is interesting because my children are 4 and 2. So I'm kind of just coming out of the trenches.
Yeah.
But I remember it well. Obviously, it's not that long ago. And naturally, my thought is I'm flabbergasted by this because you had 3. And because, I mean, when I had my first was kind of nonverbal. She could say baby. So it really did feel like 2 babies. And you've got almost 3 babies. And so just communication is hard. You can't reason like you could now with your children. You'd say, oh, mummy's got to just go and have 15 minutes in here. You do this, and I'm going to come right back, and you can go and get your thing done. Yeah. They are very selfish babies, and they want you when they want you.
Yeah.
And so I say, oh, I'm flabbergasted how brave. I didn't say brave, but I'm kind of thinking that's amazing. Yeah. But actually, we do just do it. Yeah. And having had conversations with different women, some people just have this huge priority shift where they're not interested in work at all.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're just all about their babies, and it's kind of just not on their radar. And they also don't feel very productive in that area of life. It just doesn't interest them. And other people, it just sort of seems to heighten their productivity and capability. Do you feel that necessity actually fueled you at that time and gave you more energy?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, you're absolutely right. And that is one thing that I have discovered is your productivity, because now I know that in the school run, I know I've got 6 hours to get it done. There is no messing about, because you just haven't got time. You haven't got time to stay behind an hour because you've bumped into somebody and had a quick, you just haven't got that time, which is incredibly overwhelming at the same time. The bigger picture is always the babies. But I think it is the productivity, because you've got to get stuff done. You've got a goal. And I think sometimes I wish that I could relax a little bit, and I'm not promoting like this side, but it was almost, because when they're in the baby stage, you're almost like a machine, routine, and it's so nice that we're out of that, and we're so ready to have a bit more freedom with them. We're in a different season, but when we were living in that bubble, we just smashed it. It was routine, it was consistency, and like you say, they didn't get it. If you had a meeting where they don't understand that, and nor should they. But I think for me to be able to focus outside of the doing for something else that felt at that time, sounds terrible, at that time did have an output, but obviously what you're doing with your babies has a beautiful output as well. Yeah. But I needed to feel fulfilled with something at that time. Obviously your first year in business, I remember almost being in tears. I felt like, and you feel like you're always working, because you're either in mum mode, work mode. So you're always, there was literally no downtime. And I remember within the first year looking at the bank balance, and I was like, I'm working all the time. And I went to a networking meeting, and it sticks in my head what Shane said. And he was like, how's it going? He was a real cheerleader for me and my husband. He's like, how's it going? And I was like, and I'm not one to lie. And I know with networking, people are a bit like, yeah, I think fantastic. Yeah. But I'm like, if it's not good, I will say it. And I was like, oh, it's hard. It's really hard. And he was like, yeah, it is hard. He says, not everybody can do it. He says, because if it was easy, everybody would be doing it. And he says, and you have got it in you. And do you know what? I just stood up a bit straighter, that little prep talk. And I was like, yeah. And sometimes you just need that kick up the backside, no fluff. It is hard. Get on with it, because you can do it. And I didn't have
also that faith in you. You needed him to come into your life just at that moment, and just tell it as it is. I mean, it's a compliment.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you and I think that you've got what it takes. And
Yeah.
that just gives you energy in itself. And then you can walk out of that networking event and you're like, right, we go again. Because it
Yes.
is exhausting. You're right. And I think we don't describe it as work, but
Yeah.
I just feel like my day is divided into shifts. You've got the
Yeah.
get up shift,
Yeah.
get out of
Yeah.
the house. And then you've got your work, whatever that might be. And that might be divided into different shifts, how you plan your day. And
Yeah.
then the dinner, bath, bed shift. I mean, in
Yeah.
our house, that could go on for like 6 hours.
I know.
That's like solid work. That's a lot. And if you're trying to grow a new business, it's all very well when it's established.
Yeah.
And you can be like, right, well, in this season of life,
Yeah.
I'm looking after my children. They're the priority. I have built this business. I'm just going to keep that going and serve the clients I've got until I feel that I have a bit more headspace, a bit more time to push it. But
Yeah.
when it's new, you've got
Yeah.
I mean, what was that like? You've got to find clients, you've got to spread the word. How was that? Like, how did you find that?
Well, luckily, because before launching the business, I worked in corporate and that was UK based. So I was on the road. I'd be away from home 1, 2 nights a week. Me and my husband we've been together for years. So everybody was like, when the baby's coming, blah, blah. We're a bit of a planner. So it was like, right, okay, we want to plan a family. So I was like, well, I don't want this job when we've got a family. And I took a risk because the last job that I was in, it wasn't marketing per se. It was working for the local business community that worked for Intertrading, worked alongside local government, lobbying for better business environments and creating environment for business growth. It was very much about the local area. And I had a vision and I just thought, I think I can make something of this. And if I can make something of this, they might potentially, and again, I think I was with the company about 5 years before I actually had babies. So it was part of a subconscious decision. I thought, if I can make something of this company, I'm going to be exposed to the local business community. And if they can see what I do marketing wise, then potential for the marketing agency. It was a path that I was forcing because of the vision. So that was the plan. And then when I launched it, I had about 3 scheduled posts going out on LinkedIn on, I can't remember what day it was, but let's say Monday for argument's sake. So I had 2 scheduled for the Monday in case the first one like just didn't get any traction. And then another one like the Tuesday and the Wednesday. And I launched it. I put an update, had a few images sorted and everything like that. I mean, this was before Canva and stuff. So, so I launched it with, this is what I'm doing. Anybody wants to talk. And I was so overwhelmed by the amount of comments, the amount of messages. Yeah, let's set up a meeting. Let's catch up for a coffee. Because obviously I'd not come back from maternity leave. So the business community wanted a catch up with me in general. But then with me launching the business, they wanted to know what I was doing. So luckily, I had a client up my sleeve anyway. And then when I launched it officially, a couple of the businesses that I worked closely with, they then contacted me and then that converted to retainers. So immediately I had my bills paid, as it were.
That's brilliant.
The structure of the business was the retainer side. So it came thick and fast, which I'm still working with those people now. So I was really grateful for that. And then in that time, because I didn't know anybody that had an agency, the tools that I use now to run the business, I didn't have any of that in place. I was blagging it really. I knew what marketing was, so I was like, yeah, let's just do it. And I've got different systems and different structures in place, so it is more of a business. But it was literally me launching as a freelancer. I suppose those first couple of years was purely just freelancing. So yeah, I was pretty lucky, but I launched in 2019 officially, and then obviously we all know what happened in 2020. So all that work for that year.
Yeah, we'll come on to that. I think what's interesting about that is that you had an inkling that there was work for you to do.
Yes.
And that's so important.
Yeah.
And that's a testament actually to the relationships that you'd already been building, and that people knew you, liked you, and trusted you. And they were ready to invest in you. So really, there's a lot of groundwork there that you were probably doing in every interaction that you had with people throughout your career thus far that you knew.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there's an interesting lesson in that is like every interaction that you have matters.
Yes.
Because you don't know what you're going to go on to do. You don't know what they're going to go on to do.
Yeah.
And at some point, your worlds might just collide and there's an opportunity to work together.
Oh, 100%. I always say that because, again, not immediately after launching the business, one of my main clients was the MD of the company that I got made redundant from. So it
Okay.
was his business, but he sold it out and then he set up again. So Ian was my client then for quite a few years. So yeah, it did go in full circle. So I know what corporate can be like, and if you really have had enough, you just don't know what is on your path. And if you can keep your doors open, you just never know. You never know. And what I created is the relationships, that the amount of times I've known somebody to pick up the phone to, whether that be bank accountants, anybody like that. It's just been so nice. So yeah, it is important to just sort of keep that in mind.
Yeah, I love that. And I think in my early stages of business, and I think anyone running a kind of online business, you can shy away from that face to face or
Yeah.
that picking up the phone. The first job I ever had was working for an architect's practice in Liverpool, and they asked me to make a phone call, and I wanted to die.
Yeah.
They had quite a quiet office, and I was like, just leave me alone to like be on my computer and tap away. I don't want to speak to anybody. And I think that takes confidence, and that comes with experience and maturity. But actually, there's so much joy and reward to come from just like knowing what someone looks like, having a chat with them. You know, you get to know people, don't you? And you know their kids, you know what's going on in their life, and they understand that from your perspective as well. So if you're building relationships with people over years, they'll
Yeah.
know that you've got 3 kids. And if you've got a project that you're working on for them, and you said you'd send them an update by the end of the day, you can just pick up the phone to them and be like, I'm so sorry, I was going to send you that update, but I've just had a call from school, and they will understand. You'll be like, don't worry, I'm going to get it to you first thing in the morning. It's the first thing I'm going to do. And there's grace because
Yeah.
we're connecting as real people without
Yes.
pretending that this whole other area of our lives doesn't exist, which I think is
Yeah,
really important.
exactly. And we've never targeted this, but nearly all of our customers, whether we worked on with projects or our retainers, are family-run businesses. We always attract family-run businesses, and I did a bit of digging in that, and I think it's because even though we just go in just to do the marketing, we really care. We want to know everything. We want to know all of your processes, how that works for them, what impact do you have. We really do dig into the holistic side of it. Then they respond and they work with us. And I think that's what it is, because when it's family run, it's their livelihood, it's their family. And that's the way that we see it. It's, you are helping me run my family, so let's work together. So I think it's maybe the energy that we give out, that is what we're after, because it can be a different beast in corporate, because people are there for different reasons, whereas family, they're in it for the long term. There's no alternative.
Yeah.
And that's where our mindset is. So the companies that we've attracted, and we know about their children, you know, we do know the ins and outs, because that's just who I am as a person. And then because I'm interested in them, they're always interested in, you know, family updates on our side. So it's that nice relationship that you have going. And I think then you understand what they need from us, you know, for the marketing side of things as well. And yeah, you just understand their seasons and you're needing things from them. It's not that the case that they're going in 9 to 5, they've got other hats that they're doing. So it's having that flexibility with them as well.
Yeah, and do you feel that that's different when you have a more corporate client? Do you on one hand, do you enjoy it less because there is a kind of, I don't know, I've never worked in corporate. So my dad was a builder, so there was a self-employed mentality, like you're saying, all those family run businesses. It's, you know, this works or we don't eat. So
Yeah.
it's kind of how I've always grown up. But
Yeah.
there's no kind of policy, there's no procedure. It's intuition, it's
Yes.
relationships. You don't have big meetings to decide things. You decide things straight away. You get around a table, you decide in 2 minutes flat, you go. And
Yes.
it's different in that sense. And so to a certain extent, I understand that I'm quite naive, but do you find that coming at it as you do, and you're presenting very personably, you are a mum of 3, you want to build a relationship and really get to know that company holistically, do you find that that's more difficult when you're dealing with a corporation?
Yes, and we've had, and they've been a brilliant company to work for, but they are so different. And when they've got a member of staff that you're liaising with in the marketing department, you get the sense of it's just a job to them. It is just
Yeah.
not an end goal for the business. It's just they've clocked off at a certain time, and so it's delaying getting back to you with things for no real reason. And it's the frustration of we've created some really good content and it's not being maximized. So it's the frustration with that where you don't get that with family run, because again, the investment with family run is an investment that they've made, that, like you say, it's food on the table at the end of the day. So everything's maximised, everything's repurposed. Yet with corporate, and it shouldn't matter to us because we still get paid anyway. But
yeah, of course, but you want to see the work that you do actually out into the world. You
yeah,
care about it. You've put a lot of effort into it, a lot of thought. So if you send them, a few weeks worth of content or some articles that you think they should put out, and then like you're looking and you're looking and you're looking and it's just not there, that's quite deflating for you.
Yeah, exactly. So there is a massive difference between the corporate and the family run. And the family run is my purpose, really. It's where I like to add value, and I like to see that value is there. So it does fulfill me more dealing with companies like that. And you feel more embedded in the team. So yeah, it is two completely different worlds.
So tell me what happened in March 2020 for your business.
Yeah. So I've been established for less than a year at that point. So I'd built the business up on retainers. So they purchased so many hours from me, and then for that, we'd agree on, an output on marketing. So it was almost like a regular salary that was coming in with the freelance work that I was doing. And the businesses were in shop fitting, so construction, as it were, retail. So it was businesses like that. They were, when Boris did that announcement, it was like, no, shut. We're not operating. So everything was shut. So immediately overnight, nothing coming in. It was so soul destroying. And then you're at home, just absolutely worried, sick. And luckily, the kids didn't know any difference at that time. But then the good thing to come from COVID was everybody needed digital marketing then. So immediately, loads of projects kicked off. So that was brilliant. Everybody was flexible working. So whilst I was trying to, before that, you try and hide that you're a mum, you try and hide that you've got kids in the background, because that wasn't the norm. And it wasn't the norm to talk about, family life and things like that, or working from home. It was frowned upon. You couldn't run a business if you had the kids at home. And then all of a sudden, everyone was working from home. We're seeing it on the news with people, babies coming in, bursting through the door. And it was fantastic. I was all of a sudden on the same level as everybody else. And it immediately gave me a boost. It just became the norm. So I think that actually did help my business. And then a lot of like marketing tools came out, Canva came out. That was more of the norm. And like since then, obviously, we've got the chat, GDP, we've got loads of tools. But before the pandemic, we didn't have any of that. So I think my business would look very, very different. But it really did do my business a favour, because we were able to just execute more on projects. The amount of website projects that we got was fantastic. And then people needed their hand-holding for a digital strategy then, because they just realised that if we go in lockdown again, we need to be able to run our business. So really that first year was so difficult, but then it really did come bouncing back, and people just became, it was that norm to say, be kind. And it still comes round again, if something is delayed, people are coming on it from a being kind point of view. People have got more on them, it's not just work that goes on. So it's changed. And then anybody that doesn't operate that, it's just, they're not for us. But we work with people that have that sort of mindset. It's not life or death that we're dealing with. So there is that element which I need. And that's the purpose of my business. I need that. I love what I do. But I love being a mum as well. I need that flexibility.
I think that is the thing about COVID. And actually, it's so interesting that you had almost a year beforehand to experience your business that way. And then the pandemic hit. And actually, the world afterwards is so changed. If we think about just the past 7 years, and in a lot of ways, COVID was a great leveler. All those, CEOs, CFOs had been going into London in their suits, as if they're just a bachelor about town. Suddenly are having to do Zoom calls and the kids all rush in. And that's real life. And I think that is the brilliant thing about COVID, is it kind of gave people permission to say, well, yes, I do have a family and they are important. And actually, I would quite like to pick them up from school one day a week. How about that? For dads to say that even.
Yes, exactly.
And I think that kind of dispelled this myth and just leveled the playing field. And also, I suppose for mums like you who had already been doing it, who were running a business, freelance or however it was structured at the time, and also juggling all of the responsibilities of parenthood, people now understood it. You know, all those people, and there's nothing wrong with whatever people choose to do, but the people who were dropping their kids off for breakfast and picking them up in time for bed, you know, they now could see it from your point of view. And that must have been, I don't know, I'd have been like quite satisfied by that, I think.
Oh, it was amazing. It was just amazing, and it couldn't have happened at a better time. And I remember one, because I try and get the chunk of my work done whilst, as we were lucky enough, we had a lovely nanny. That always sounds a bit fancy, but we had a nanny. She used to come in, drop her kids off at senior school, so she'd come 8:30 till 3:30, and then go and pick them up. And she flexed with us. So as I was building the business back up, she'd give me the amount of days that I needed, so I didn't have a massive overhead. Whereas again with nursery, you would have done so.
You've got 3 that you're paying for full-time nursery 5 days a week. You may as well have a nanny.
Exactly.
I think, that can be flexible, and also that they're building that one-to-one relationship.
It was brilliant. But then come 3:30, my husband was out at work, and I had a meeting scheduled, and it was a sales meeting, and they wanted a new website. And I said to Joseph, I mean, he was only did it at the time anyway, I said to Joseph, give you £1, just keep an eye on the twinnies. He's like, yeah, okay, mummy. And then I was on the Zoom call looking, they couldn't see it with the way that they came in through the door. But Joseph came in and he's like, oh, George, you want to? I was like, okay. I couldn't quite find, the mute button. I was like, okay, that's fine. He's like, oh, I've got his pants. And I was like, what? And he'd come in and he'd brought his pants with a big dollop of poo in it.
Oh my God.
And I remember this sales
Oh, Caroline.
Wow.
I mean, what'd you do?
I know. I was like, wow. Yeah. And I did. I won the project. So I was like, how? And I look back now, I'm like, God, what did they think? But,
like that's real life. That's real life. That sort of shit literally happens. Literally happens. Oh God, yeah. That's that. I mean, I'm sure that sort of thing happens to a lot of people. That's a good story, though. I reckon that'll stick in your mind.
And it's stuff like that you look back, you're like, how did you even focus? But again, because you had such tight pockets of time, you just quickly got on. And whereas I think now that they're a bit older, because they are, they got, their emotions and things. So you can't just dismiss it. You can't, give them. My favourite one was a pack of quavers used to make the world a brighter place in our house. But now
there are more complex emotional reactions required now. That pack of quavers doesn't quite cut it.
It doesn't cut it. They need you more. And I remember the lady at the nursery, she said, when you're so sleep deprived, she's at this age, they're physically demanding. She says, but when they get older, they're more emotionally demanding. And I didn't understand it at the time. And I get it now. I feel like my time is more limited because it's important that I'm present now. Whereas I suppose when I look back, I got away with not being present, which it sounds terrible, but my mind could stay in the work mode more because you could chuck that pack of quavers. Oh, they're all right, Peppa Pig, that sort of thing. Whereas I'm definitely in that different season now.
But also it's more important what you say. When they're little, they just run to you because they fell over and they've hurt their knee. Just, oh, they're there. Oh, it looks all right. It's not bleeding. No, you don't need a plaster. Are you feeling better now? Have a cuddle. Cuddle in our house. And then they just toddle off again.
Yeah.
Whereas if they come to you and say, I tell you something that happened at school today.
Yes.
And they're all sad.
Yeah.
You can't be thinking about work. Because it matters what you say. If there's a situation, you have to concentrate. You can't just be there, I'm sure you'll be all right. Pat them on the head.
Exactly.
Doesn't work.
No, and I'm very conscious of not opening my emails up, during the school run, as we pull up, just even have a little look, because you just don't know what's in there. Because I've had that happen a couple of times where, you're on deadline for projects and you go into operations mode. And then when they are saying stuff to you, which is important, you sort of, you're coming from that anxious perspective and they don't deserve that neither. So I'm very boundaried. That can wait. I don't need to know about it. When I've dropped them off, I can pick it up then. And again, just before pick up, I don't have my phone out with me. I'm listening and I'm present with them. I feel it's so important for them to be seen. And then, but like what you were saying, they do get it now after school run. Right, well, I've just got to get this solid work done in here for 1 hour. After that 1 hour, we'll have tea. And you can reason with them and they get it. They do get it. So that's also nice. So it's
they can play together as well. They don't need you so much. You've got 3. Obviously, they've got their own relationship fully forming now, and they can bounce off each other. Whereas I think, when they're tiny,
Yeah.
they still want mum to be playing the game with them, which is a
Yeah.
different thing as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah,
Yeah.
the boundary issues, I think that's something I'm very much like just starting to learn, because my 4-year-old now, she really needs emotional attention and she needs physical touch and she needs reassurance, and she's an amazing character, but I'm starting to see that she'll notice, and it's that moment when they turn to you and they're like, mummy, you're not listening.
Yeah.
And you
Oh,
are
God.
just thinking about something for work, and it kind of like, you couldn't feel any worse. You're like, no,
Yeah.
you're right. I'm literally not listening to you.
Yeah. I
Because
know.
sometimes they talk nonsense, and it's like, how do you distinguish between the nonsense that you can just sort of fob off a little bit? Like, yeah, that's great. Yeah, really good.
Yeah,
Really good.
exactly.
Keep
I
going.
know.
And then the stuff
I
that
know.
matters.
And then the other side of it is, as they've got older, I don't mind exposing them to when I am working, in the sense of when I've got an important phone call. I mean, there was one where I was firefighting an issue and I was waiting for the phone call, and I was taking my daughter to dance and it was in the car, and I couldn't miss this call. And I just said to her, I says, this is so important, Rosa. I said, you cannot breathe a word while I'm on this call. And this call, I needed to be really concise and really clear. It was a great outcome. I was really like boundaried, explained, and it was a good outcome. So she could hear the other side, like the client side, and she could hear how everything was articulated and handled and managed. And then I put the phone down and I said, oh, well done for that. And I can't remember what she said back, but I just thought, sometimes, when you think, I think that's going to be a core memory. She can hear mum being boss mum, and she's looking at that. And, hopefully I'm inspiring her, and we're constantly explaining the concept of money and how that happens and what you need to allow me to do. I'll tell you when we're doing it, and then I'll tell you the result. So it's educating them in that sense. In the same way that you were brought up, that entrepreneurial spirit, you won't know the impact until they're older. It might be doing the opposite for them. But for me,
they still will remember that experience.
yeah,
Like, this isn't just my mum. This is also a businesswoman.
yeah,
And you're showing, especially for your daughter, you're showing her that mum's doing stuff that matters.
yeah,
and that's putting food on the table. And it must be really fulfilling to kind of actually have them start to understand that cycle.
yeah. Yeah, because it's my business. There's a passion behind it. There's a want and a need, and there's pockets of time. Whereas I think if I was in a job, I don't think I'd be articulating what I'm doing quite as passionately, because you'd be you've got your set hours and you just got to get it done in those hours, and that's it. Woo, work's done for the day. Whereas we don't have that moment in our house, unfortunately. No. So yeah, I think they pick up on things differently. Yeah, hopefully that has a positive impact on them.
Yeah, definitely. Do you feel like they fully understand the concept of marketing? Like, do they understand what you do?
I think it took a while. Because Daddy is an electrician by trade, so they see him in
which is easier. Yeah.
It's easy to understand and explain.
Yeah.
We've got the
turn this light on. Daddy did that.
And then, they see that Daddy works away sometimes, and then he explains like what they're doing. There's a visual output to it, isn't there? Whereas they just see me tapping away on the laptop, which they can see anybody tapping away at a laptop. And I remember Joseph saying a few years ago, and I was working, and he came in, and I was like, Joseph, I'm working. I'm like it was at night time when he's coming down, when he shouldn't be coming down. And he's like, no, you're not. And he was like, I felt it so funny. I'm like, yes, I am. But now, after he's doing IT, and they're into YouTube and stuff like that, as Josie's getting older, and I talk about it more, and he sees the marketing, he sees the achievements, like when I did the fellow, and he gets it now, and he knows I've done it for years, and he can be really complimentary. Sometimes, like when we go in the car, it'll be a podcast that I'm playing, and so I will swap it over, but for those like few minutes before it gets swapped over, he'll be like, you don't need that, mummy. He's like, you already do that. He's so sweet. So it is, they're just like sponges, aren't they? And I think your world is different if you're running your own business. I think they're just exposed to it a bit more because I've got the pockets of time rather than the big structured day.
Yeah. Also, there's no real clock off in the same sense. If you face a challenge earlier that day, that is going to be playing in your mind.
Yes.
And you might be putting them to bed.
Yeah.
And then you might be getting back on the computer because you've just got something that is niggling at you need to deal with.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if it is more of a traditional corporate role,
Yeah.
then it is clock off and it's out of your brain. It's just, well, clock in, clock out and go and
Yeah.
have fun at the weekend. Whereas you're always
Yeah.
kind of carrying it with you. And I think
You
that's something
are.
that your children will definitely pick up on. But it's all to do with it's all to do with striving and
Yeah.
trying and also having agency over your destiny. Like we used to do daft things, like our weekends would be spent at a property that my dad was trying to sell, and my mum and dad would sit there all weekend in case someone came. And this is like in the early 90s when the market was dead, but every weekend, and we just have to figure it out. But we were very much brought into it, and I don't think that did us any harm because we just felt like, well, I mean, that was just it. You didn't really know any different. But now, understanding my parents as adults, I can really appreciate all that effort that they made, and actually that was all for us. It was all for us.
Yeah.
And it's about building that family, and it's about building a level of security. And actually there's something quite primal about it.
Yeah.
You know, you're not outsourcing your success or your failure to somebody else. You're owning it.
Yes.
You.
Yeah.
And I love that. And I think perhaps that's why I've always had that niggle to do something like that myself. But I think your children will definitely pick up on that. Absolutely.
Yeah,
They
and
just can't help it.
No, exactly. And we, the amount of times that, we got to go into the office and, they come into the office and we bring them along on the journey and the highs and the lows. And then recently there was a real low and I normally do hide that, but I just thought, do you know what? It won't do them any harm because life isn't just one straight road. And this is one thing that I always say to particularly my son at the moment, because he's the oldest, is nobody is perfect. If they make a mistake at school, it's so okay the way that they do it, the detentions and stuff, because you accidentally spoke when you weren't supposed to speak. It's like, for goodness sake, nobody is perfect, and that expectation certainly doesn't come from our house. I feel it's important for them to understand, and then when they fall, when they have the results that they didn't expect, it's normal, and that's what we're sort of trying to create. But
And it's not a catastrophe.
No, it's not.
It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
You pick yourself up and they'll watch you do that,
Yes. And that's it. And particularly when I was starting the business and they were young, it was that 7:00 bedtime, and it was, a book and a song, etc. And then bedtime is sort of done. And like now it's different. And that's the only thing that I am struggling in this season, because I've set myself up in these chunks of time, and it's hard because when the business is coming in, you take the business. So then they're going to bed later and they've got more stories to tell you at that bedtime. It's like you're looking and it's pushing 8:00 and you're thinking, I've got at least an hour and a half to get done while you're still, alert and
here
doing it. And your mind is then going into that, and you're almost rushing that. But I think only you can manage the seasons yourself, and it's what works for you. So I need to manage that season out differently, because they might not tell you anything when they pick you up from school, and tea time still don't tell you, but it's that bedtime they'll tell you a story. And I just want to be more present at that time, rather than having a couple of hours that I know I've got to get done. So that's another season. But God, I'm embracing it, because I sort of break it down, and I've always done like a 5-year plan, and I plan it how old I'm going to be, how old the kids are going to be. As sad as that sounds, the twins are going to go up to the junior school. It's still on the same site, but it is a different transition. And so then I was like, right, okay, well, I've only got 4 years left of the school run. Okay, so just stick with it. Make this manageable while we're in this season of life. We need to keep this as it is, because I still want our world to be the school run. I'm the first person that they see. And again, it's no shame on anybody that needs the breakfast clubs and things like that. They're brilliant and they're much needed. But I tipped our world upside down, inside out, in order for us to do this, and I need to be able to fulfill that. So that is my drive at the moment, because you can steer off track and you can want to build on bigger and better things, and if I did this and etc. But you have to just, if you don't keep an eye on that goal, you can lose sight of your vision. And I've always had a vision, but it's important to keep on that, because there's so many external factors that can make you wobble. You can have your down days, but if you just got to be able to just have that certainty in yourself and what you've done, and just keep on track of the bigger picture. Just like with the COVID side of things, I could have easily been, that's it now. And I would have missed out on all of the flexibility for the school runs and being there just for that moment in time. And it's just a moment in time. So,
It goes so quickly though.
yeah.
Like I can't, but my eldest starts school in September and I can't believe it. I'm like, I still call her baby. I'm like, come on, baby.
Yeah. Yeah.
But she's starting school, and that, in my
Yeah.
mind, that's the end of her babyhood, and we're
Yeah.
about to go into this new stage, which is all brilliant. She's ready for it. It's all good, and it is about seasons. And so
Yeah.
you have to remember, like, I think it's hard, especially when you feel like in your business you're gaining traction, and you feel like you've got to keep going and like ride the wave. It's very easy to be like, I'm just going to work through this bedtime
Yes.
because I've got stuff. I'm just going to, can you get the kids?
Yeah.
And like, of course, there's a bit of tag teaming and it's all ebbs and flows, but you've got to watch that balance because that is a key reason why you went to all the trouble to turn your life upside down in the first place, so that you could do those things and you could be the first face they see, even if they don't tell you a damn thing until 8 p.m. about their day, and you just feel like you're talking to a wall, and they're eating their dinner and watching. I mean, my eldest is just like a zombie watching TV.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, like when I was younger, it was just that my mum was there. I just felt safe because she was there.
Yes.
I don't remember like meaningful heart to hearts. I just remember that she was always there, and that consistency, reliability,
That's
you know, and you can. It is lovely. It is lovely.
It's
She's a good mum.
nice, yeah.
But yeah, it's just that feeling of being safe and
Yeah.
that you were a priority. And I think it is easy to just start skipping a few of those interactions in
Yeah.
favor of work. And
Yeah.
it sounds like you're on it anyway.
Yeah,
Sounds like you've got
I
it
mean,
down.
we have had elements of that where it has got really busy, and then we did do the after school thing. We've done the tag teaming, and then it just, what I was finding with the after school things, it just made my day that little bit longer in a way, because you just start in the settling routine 2 hours later at home, you know. So it just didn't work for us, and then we just had to press the reset button, you know, and it was like, okay, what are we doing? So yeah, it is, but it is so easy to get carried away. But yeah, if you could just allocate that time to sort of just look at your goals again and look at your vision, and just remember it's a moment in time, and you'll feel it very different being in the school schedule, you know, the dropping off, the picking up, and then the holidays, you know, everything revolving around them, and that is, it's lovely, and it's so different to when they are toddlers and you go on holiday whenever, but it's so lovely. But you'll find your feet with it. But yeah, and as soon as you find your feet with that, it's something else. Like I say, I've got 4 years left of the school run, and it's like, oh no, wow, where did that last 6 years go? You know, so yeah, I'm just sort of embracing it as it is. It's not the easiest option. It definitely isn't the easiest option, but yeah, it's working for us at the moment.
But if you hadn't done it, you might not ever pick them up from school.
Yeah, yeah.
But it is all about seasons. And I think that's really valuable advice, to just kind of assess it regularly.
Yeah.
Like, is this working?
Yeah.
And if it's not, what should we do? Rather than just kind of struggle, you know?
Yeah. You can get lost in the moment and think that is forever. But I think the more you just get your head round it and just embrace it, you know, I say that to myself even over the wash basket.
Just embrace the washing. It is what it is. So tell me specifically about the gap that you saw in the market that you feel that your business fills. I suppose it's in your local area. Do you find most of your clients are local to you?
Yes. And again, when COVID happened, we did get some clients that were London based, and they were fantastic. But we've just homed in really on working with local businesses. And obviously, when we do get an inquiries coming through that we're not familiar with, we will ask that question of, you know, how did you come across us? And they'll just say, we want to work with a local person, because if we want a half an hour meeting, we do want it face to face. So there is that do want that face to face. That's just been our niche that we've sort of leaned into. They want to see, I suppose they want to see the value in it. And you do get, as much as Zoom is good, you do get a bit more of a general chit chat before you know how the coffee's making, that sort of thing. And we've got long-term relationship with all of our local clients. And that's where we've leaned into it. When I was working previously, what we would do is showcase local businesses that were doing fantastic things, but nobody knew about it. Nobody knew that they were doing it. It's like, oh my goodness, they're based here and they're doing that and they're exporting here, and nobody knew about it. So we were the voice to promote what they were doing. So that's where I sort of thought, oh, there's a niche here. There's lots of marketing companies, lots of big marketing agencies, But I think if you're family run business, that seems quite an overwhelming factor to bring a big agency in to do stuff that they don't really need to do because they're already successful in their sector. So it was providing, you might not need it to bring in additional sales, but you do need it to bring in to raise your brand awareness. And your brand awareness isn't always to bring in sales. When you can't find tradespeople that you need or expertise, if they don't know about you, you're not going to bring in the next generation to continue the success of your business. So it's sort of got many different layers to it of what we do. And there wasn't anybody around that was particularly doing that. So it was great storytelling is what we lean into. So it's a lot of case studies, and they're churning over work so quickly that they don't appreciate from an outsider that you need to sell that success story because you need to sell and make our local business environment look fantastic. You need to be, an inspiration to the next generation to know that they don't need to go and get their education from here and fly their wings somewhere else. There's many different sides to why you need to raise your brand awareness locally. And if it's a national story, we'll work on the national story as well. So it was a lot of that. And that's where the passion came from. And I'm still passionate about that in terms of making the local business environment, whether that be raising awareness of any grants. I get a lot of solopreneurs that's setting up and they've got fantastic ideas and they're not aware of the support that's out there. So it might be grant funding, free training, that sort of thing. I always will signpost them. And it's like, I didn't know any of that was available. No, you can get $2,500 if you're setting up to do your marketing. No idea. And so that's where the passion has come from, and that's where the niche of my business stems is just being the eyes and ears for businesses and just being that storyteller for them. And that's what I identified when I was in my previous role, and that's what we continue to lean in.
Did you grow up where you work now? Did you grow up in Mansfield?
I did. I grew up in Mansfield. My mum and dad are Irish, so we had our summers in Ireland. That was like more of a farming environment. But yeah, I grew up here. I went off to uni and then met Mark, and he lived here. So I came back. So yeah, and I bring my kids up here. So I don't want people sort of talking the town down. The more we can talk about the positive side of things, which is what marketing does, the better and more inspired my children will feel. And that's sort of the passion and the purpose of behind what I do. And that's really why I do prefer to focus more on local businesses. And it's nice if the kids recognise what you do and, say, oh, they're one of Mummy's customers. And, they're like, oh, really? Oh, wow. So it builds a bigger picture for them.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's such important work to kind of celebrate the good work that is being done in your local community. And it sounds like you're really trying to embed yourself in that. I imagine that you might be at the supermarket and you see somebody and you just did a big campaign for them. And you are completely right that people who are running their own businesses, you're so in it, especially if you're busy. You often don't see the value in what you do from a PR perspective, or you see how that could inspire people around you, because there are really extraordinary things happening in complete backwaters. And unless you tell the story, no one would know. And that's quite an important message for you to send to your children as well, like you say. And
exactly.
I love that.
Yeah, that there's opportunities here. And that's sort of, that's been embedded in what I've done for the last 15 years or so with the marketing. Because it is a passion of mine. And like I say, if you've got family here, you want to make them feel proud. You don't want to think, I can't wait to get out of here. And that's part of the bigger picture of what we want to do with the business community, because the business community thrives, everybody thrives.
Yeah, but it's one of those unquantifiable things, isn't it?
It is.
Obviously you market your own bread and butter, that you can provide these digital marketing service for people. You can go into their business, you can see the story that they can't see, and you can do all of those things. But it's the ripples in the pond. It's, they might say to you, but we've got loads of work. Why do we need to do that? And there are so many reasons, but it's hard for an accountant to pinpoint the value on those. Like you say, to inspire future generations within your local community. And those people probably do care about that because they're raising children, and it's not nice to think they'll all inevitably leave.
Yeah,
exactly. You want to think, well, I want to show them that they can leave if they want to. Like, everyone's free will. People do what they want, or go and kick the gong around somewhere in a big city for a while. But then if they do want to start a business, this is a perfectly good place to do it.
Yes, exactly.
You can make that work.
Yeah.
And you don't have to abandon your roots and your community and your family, because so many people do feel that they've got to travel and go to a big city to make their way in life. But
Yeah.
actually, then you have just all these disjointed families, grandparents that aren't seeing their grandkids, or they just wave to them on Zoom once a week. And it's
Yeah.
it's quite sad for society that it is like that. So there are so many repercussions of that work that you're doing. And it's
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
So, with all the experience that you have, and as a mother, and all the lessons you've learned through your journey in parenthood, what would you now tell your 8-year-old self?
Oh, oh God. Wow. What did I tell my 8-year-old? Just that I would tell her, without being emotional with this one, that's a hard one. I would tell her just to believe in herself. I really would. I think how I was brought up was a little bit unsettled, and I was quite opposite you in terms of you need to get a job, you need to do as you're told, and that is it. So I really have broke the mold. My sister's she's a nurse by trade, and mum was always employed. Dad was absent. So yeah, I get where her circumstances came from. Is you need that security. So I haven't had that support in terms of that cheerleader within the family. I'll be the black sheep of what is she doing that for? So, and I think probably where my courage has come from, Mark's entrepreneurial, but his side of the family is entrepreneurial. His stepdad has only just retired and he's absolutely like beside himself. And he did building as well as running a business. He built houses as you do. He's just been super busy and is a very different mindset. So I think it helps with who is in your circle. You hear that all the time. Who's in your circle and who gives you that sort of courage. So yeah, it would just be to believe in yourself and that anything is possible. Everything is just a moment in time. I can't really say this because the minute that I learned about marketing at school, that was it. I was like, I'm sold. So I have done marketing my entire life and I've not ever had that itch to deviate from that. So I've always loved it. But it's a moment in time, anybody can retrain as anything. So it's sort of not to overthink things, and things change. When I was in my 20s, I was climbing that ladder. I was like, no way, I'm going to be marketing director. I'm going to be working all hours. I'm going to, power suits. I really thought that was the vision. And now I've got a very different goal, and things change and you don't realize that change until you're older. But I've got a friend of mine, she's been so successful, she's in her 80s now, and I wish I could just sit her down for her to give me the nuggets of information, because it does all change. You can get that overwhelmed, you get swept away with everything, and success is different. Success isn't always about the money. Success for me this year stand for managing the business, but also being present with the kids. You might have set the goals and maybe the financial goals haven't come to fruition yet, but don't sit in that moment and sort of look at the bigger picture of what other successes you've had in life. And that is a bigger picture. One thing that Teresa has said to me is follow the plan, not the emotion. Stick with it. Why are you doing it? And there's going to be bumps in the road, but you'll get there. And it's important just to try and keep that network of people around you, the right people around you. Like what I said at the beginning, is the value of having people that you can pick up the phone to is absolutely unreal. And I worry about young people working from home, because there's nuggets of information that you get from being with other people. So I do worry about that side. So I think the flexibility is great. But I think for young people to be around older mentors that have got that bigger vision is just so invaluable. So much time can be wasted if you sit in the moment. Whereas if you can just talk through it with somebody, have that network of mentors and coaches, God, they make you see the wood for the trees. It's brilliant.
And you get so much value, I think, at that stage of life from the in-between moments.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the nugget of wisdom that you need to get you over the next hurdle. It's not necessarily going to happen in the Zoom call. It might happen just as someone's passing your desk. Just like you said at that networking meeting where you just happen to bump into somebody who happens to tell you that you've got what it takes. And you can't plan for those moments. They just happen quite sporadically and quite organically. And I do think, I'm a huge fan of flexible working in general, but I think it really helps and it works when you're a parent. I think when you're in your 20s, you should be in amongst it. Whatever works, for everyone's got different ways of thinking, different personality types, but when I was in my 20s, I think I would have felt quite isolated. I think it's supposed to be all about your friends, all about your colleagues. You've got to absorb all the information around you from everyone that's done what you want to do and has been where you want to be.
Yeah.
And I agree with you completely. I think it can be quite isolating. But thinking back to what you said about believing in yourself, I mean, it seems like perhaps your parents weren't equipped and didn't have the experience to
Yeah.
tell you, and they couldn't emulate to you what was possible in terms
Yeah.
of an entrepreneurial lifestyle.
Yeah.
And that's not their fault. Their reality was
Exactly.
that they were looking for the steady job.
Yeah.
And they, your mum was worried about you and wanted you to be okay
Yeah.
and wanted you to take the safe route, really, because
Yeah.
that's what she
Yeah.
understood brought
Yeah.
security.
Yeah.
And so that's the advice that you got. But it does make it, and I'm definitely not going to use the word brave, it does make it more remarkable that when the time came, you'd done all of the things that she'd recommended you do and school had recommended you do. You'd got your degree, you'd gone and you've attacked that corporate ladder. You were going to rise to the top, and you got all that marketing experience and you absorbed it all like a sponge. And then you get to a stage where you reflect, you think, okay, well, I ticked all of those boxes and now I'm a mum and it doesn't work.
No, it's not.
Need to do something radical.
Yeah, exactly. And as you use the word there is safe. Like a lot of people do see the employment side of things as safe. You know when you're getting your holidays, you know when you're getting paid, but I'm going to flip that, and maybe it's because I have experienced redundancy. That's not safe. That wasn't a huge redundancy package that I could put my feet up for 6 months. That's not safe neither. So I've sort of had my feet in both camps, and in a way, you're never in control because running something like this, all your clients are your bosses. You've got an output to fulfill. So, it's not the safest route. It's not the easiest route. But then you have to flip it. And I look on LinkedIn now, and it breaks my heart when I see all these fantastic marketing professionals being made redundant left, right, and centre. And that just reiterates me that is not the safe option. And I said to one person when I seen it, another redundancy coming up, I was like, do you not think it's time for you to go to launch? And he's like, oh, and again, maybe it is just that belief, and that I wouldn't say, I believe in myself loads, but I don't overthink it. And I think if I were overthinking it from the beginning, I would never do it. And I think if I stopped now to overthink anything, I wouldn't do it. But I think because I'm so limited on time with everything, and I know that I've got a goal, I can't overthink it. I've just got to do it. I've got to put do all the outreach and get sales in and stuff. I just got to do it. Whereas,
but it is self-belief though, because that if the shit hits the fan, say it's COVID, say it's the market, marketing is one of those things that have like a low elasticity of demand. So those things are not necessarily safe, but if the shit hits the fan, that you are a sort of personality that is not going to go and hide in a dark room, that you are going to be like, right, you're going to tackle the problem head on, you're going to roll your sleeves up. And this is what my dad always said, you roll your sleeves up, you get to work, because you are in charge of your own destiny. And that is a massive responsibility. And it's not one that everyone feels inclined to take on for all sorts of reasons.
Yeah.
But that's where the self-belief comes in. It's like, well, I have a skill and people need it. So if there's a challenge, then I roll my sleeves up and I get to work and I can fix it and I'll sort it out.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's probably the mentality from childhood was you work hard. And it is that, but that can be debilitating as well when you've got that mindset of, rest is wrong.
Yeah.
Because it is non-stop. That's the mentality maybe that I've taken from the hard-working side.
Same. That's another discussion. But the work ethic is there.
Yes.
And the resilience is there.
Yes.
Whether it's go and find another job or roll your sleeves up and make your business work.
Yeah.
Or stop what you're doing and change direction. Do something different.
Yeah.
But it's that resilience, that self-belief that you can figure it out.
Yeah, it is.
That's what you tell your 8-year-old self.
Exactly. Yeah, it is. It's the resilience, and there's an element of control there. Like you say, you have got a skill set, and you can change direction at any time. But as long as that direction is getting you for your own purpose, otherwise you're never going to be happy. And life is too short to to do the shoulda, woulda, coulda. At least I can say, if it all goes wrong in the morning, at least I could say I tried. At least I could say I'd made something work for our season of life. There's no shame on anything. I think the shame comes from not trying and moaning. I could have, there would be more shame if I were to sit there in 10 years' time and be exhausted from a different avenue that I didn't try. So, yeah, it's been the, break through the barriers, surround yourself with good people that help you with that mindset. And yeah, you can do it.
Amazing. Love it. Okay. Tell everybody where they can find you if they would like to connect with you online.
Yeah, sure. I'm on Instagram and on LinkedIn, Caroline Cox Marketing as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Caroline.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really enjoyed it and I wish you all success with the podcast.
That was such an inspiring conversation. Caroline has successfully crafted a business and a life that works for her family in this season. And while she'll admit it's an ever-evolving picture, she is proof that it is possible, even with 3 babies to take care of at home. So if you have an idea weighing on your mind for a business of your own, I hope you found this conversation valuable and can take the advice that Caroline offered to her 8-year-old self. Believe in yourself. Anything is possible. Thank you so much for being here. I know your time is precious and I appreciate every single one of you for tuning in today. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, rate and review the podcast because we want as many mums as possible to find us and join in the conversation. If you have thoughts, questions, love letters, or even hate mail, please send them my way. I read every single message. For more resources and episode show notes, please visit our website at mummeansbusinesspodcast.com and find us on Instagram at mummeansbusinesspodcast for behind-the-scenes content and updates. Until next time, I'm wishing you only good things in life and business, and I will speak to you soon.